Hi, this is Mustafa Isik, and I'm here with Kellee Santiago. And Kellee is actually I think you're the co-founder, you're the president,
Yeah.
and you're one of the designers of Flower at That Game Company.
That's right. Well, except for the designer part.
All right, so you
Yes.
didn't do design.
Right.
All right. So, Kellee, actually a lot of our viewers know Flower, and we've talked about Flower before, but then again, I'd really like to hear from you for those that don't know what Flower is. How would you describe, what's your sales pitch? How would you describe Flower in 1, 2, or 3 lines?
Well, Flower is, in Flower, you play as the wind, blowing flower petals across these surreal, imaginary landscapes. And we say our tagline for Flower is life in balance.
Mm-hmm.
The goal of the game being to find harmony and balance between these disparate elements of urban city environment and these surreal, imaginary, natural environments.
So where's the game aspect coming into that? Why is it a game? Why is it not a meditational tool?
Well, because we approach our projects from a creative standpoint. From that starting point will lead to something totally unique and different. And why we don't start necessarily with mechanics. We start with this idea, like with Flower, the feeling of being in a huge field of flowers and what that's like. And it feeds the art direction, it feeds the music, which through mediums like film, we know how to do that. And then there's this added component of interactivity. And so we really view it as a complete experience with all of these elements working together to communicate concepts through the medium of video game.
So what was your main motivation for this game? Was it that you wanted to explore in what kind of different and non-standard ways you could evoke emotions and convey emotions? Was that one of the motivations?
That's one of the motivations for That Game Company as a whole. One of our major goals is to push the communicative boundaries of video games as a medium, and we attempt to do that with our games by creating games that explore emotions that haven't been expressed before. When you look at the palette of emotions that have been explored in video games in the past, it's really a limited range. It's similar to if film had only been making action movies for the last 100 years.
Good hit. Looks like at least 3 kills.
We don't think making a video game means you have to make an action game. And we just try to prove it one game at a time.
With games, when you produce games, it always costs money. You at least have to pay your developers and your designers and whatnot. So, and you guys with your game, you were fairly successful from what I know, and you had that PS3 exclusive deal with Sony and released it as a download-only title on PSN from what I know. So the thing is, would you have embarked on this mission? I think you did before having that exclusive deal, but would you have driven this so far to market release if you wouldn't have had, a more or less wealthy or powerful backer?
I honestly don't think so, because when Genova and I co-founded That Game Company, we were straight out of grad school. It wasn't just that we didn't have any money. We were in debt, right, with student loans. So we assumed that we would take what was a very typical path at the time, which was to go into the industry, work at a larger studio for 3 to 5 years, build up a reputation, so then we could start raising funds or save money in order to do these projects. But what happened is when we graduated in 2006, that was really when digital distribution started taking off, and we really saw an opportunity in general to develop these games immediately. And then when Sony came to us with an offer to help start our studio with these 3 downloadable titles for PlayStation Network, it was just an amazing opportunity.
Another really interesting aspect, you gave a talk here at GDC yesterday, which was about a post-mortem about Flower. You guys actually did a lot of small iterations, and not only that, you really more or less completed a prototype in each iteration. And not only that, but you utilized different technologies in the process.
Yeah.
So could you elaborate on that? Because that's interesting.
Well, when it comes to prototyping a game, we really see as any means necessary. Whatever tools the designer think is best for the job. So we went through processing and Flash and XNA, which was a great 3D prototyping tool. Anything where we could do it just quick and dirty and get things up fast. Because the important part about a prototype is not just getting it working, but getting it working to a point where other people can play it, and doing that very quickly, because really, as soon as you get it into someone's hands, you know whether it works or not. You know whether it's going to be engaging or not. And the important thing is just to be able to be brave enough to fail a lot. So in the talk yesterday, I showed a lot of prototypes which were pretty ugly and pretty terrible games, but it's an important process. It's in developing any game, but especially something that's about a subject that's maybe never been done before.
I asked you this yesterday, and I will do it now, once more on camera. So didn't you run into any problems with at least your developers or even artists about, prototyping frequently and then throwing away assets such as code and probably, I'm not sure when you started with textures and 3D models, but then again, changing platforms, changing languages just necessitates you getting rid of all this stuff and starting from scratch, more or less.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you asked me again because I was thinking about it more. And certainly there's that aspect again where you do have to have a team that is of the mentality that prototyping is important and that throwing away stuff is an important process of development. And thankfully we have a team that does really believe firmly in a rapid iteration process. But the other part of that is that doing these prototypes also feeds a lot directly into the development of game. It helps shape, especially from an engineering perspective, it starts shaping the schedule and the budget and the sort of resources you need to accomplish the design goals, to accomplish what they're iterating on. Because they have to create some architecture, although the architecture designers would create will probably get totally thrown away. But those lessons learned, that design process of creating the engine architecture, it isn't. It definitely feeds directly into the final product.
So, all right, Kellee, that's pretty much it. So thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you. I really
This is
appreciate it.
Well, so do I. So thanks a lot.
Thank you.